In life's journey, we must seek to reflect, learn, and grow. Welcome to the Road to Rediscovery with your host, Aubrey Johnson.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson, and I'm so excited to have you here with me. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on past life lessons to learn and grow from them and to take it to the next level and help others who are struggling through dark times. My next guest takes the phrase coming out of your shell to a whole new level. He's a performer, a speaker, and a trainer who's certainly in his element when on stage in front of an audience. But now, surely, a lot of us are not like this, right? But a lot of us aspire to be, and he knows this and helps many others by encouraging and training them to find their voice and get their message out to the world. He's also an author, and his book, The Power to Speak Naked, can put you on the road to speaking with confidence. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Tyler Foley to the show. Hey, Tyler, how you doing, man? Welcome to the show.
Aubrey, thank you for such a wonderful and warm introduction. I couldn't have done it better myself, so I always appreciate it, and way to go. Very professional. As one professional to another, kudos to you, sir. Kudos to you.
Oh, you're too kind, man. You're way too kind. So, all right, I'm ready to unpack this, man. Let me ask you, how early in life did you feel the drive, the desire to be, I don't know if it's the center of attention is the right way of putting it, or just the power of your voice? How early did you pick up on that and say that this is what I like to do? This is who I am.
Well, I think my mother was in her third trimester and I started kicking.
Oh my gosh.
And that was no. To be honest, I've always been a bit of a showman. I really enjoy performance. I took a shine to it at a very, very young age. I've been on stage since I was 6 years old. So I to be honest, I don't know a time when I didn't seek the spotlight, let's say. Right, you're 3 years old and you put on the cape and you pretend to be a magician and do the thing. I actually remember getting my first magic set. I think I was 7 years old, and I would put on little magic shows for the neighbors. I love doing stuff like that. So I to be honest, I don't recall a time when it wasn't a passion for me.
Nice. So, as with many talents and many gifts that we have as children growing up, in addition to having those gifts, I mean, we're just trying to feel our way throughout life, right? Understanding our boundaries, what's right, what's wrong. So, I would think these gifts have a lot of good attributes to them. Like you said, the magic shows that you've given as a when you were a child to your friends. But the gift could also get us in a little trouble from time to time when we were growing up. Did you ever have the same with that?
Oh, absolutely. I know one of the things that I had to learn early on is the danger of ego, especially when, I mean, I remember the first lesson hard when I was 14 years old. I, at that point, had been performing 8 years, at least minimum professionally. And I thought I could do anything. And I was so cocky that I was the world's greatest actor ever at 14, obviously. And I remember at a Remembrance Day ceremony, so Memorial or Veterans Day would be the US equivalent. And I was tasked with giving a poem each year, reading a poem in Flanders Fields.
Okay.
Famous Canadian poem. And I had been doing that probably since I was 10 years old. So it would have been my fourth or fifth year of delivering this poem. And I didn't even bother looking it over again because it was memorized. I had it.
Yeah.
And I definitely let my ego get in the way because this year, my grade 9 year, at this assembly, they wheeled this veteran in. He was a grizzled man, looked like if Clint Eastwood had just eaten a bucket of lemons. Like
oh
he
my
just
goodness.
looked hard,
Yeah.
And they wheeled him in, And I don't know what this man was thinking, but I know what I was projecting on him in my head. I was thinking to myself, who are you? This man has seen the war, and you're
Yeah.
just here reciting a poem, and you didn't even bother rehearsing it. And I
Mm.
had all of this. And he had full medal decorations. And I thought, how shameful of you, Tyler, to not
Mm.
put in the effort that this poem actually deserved.
Mhm.
And it was the first time I ever had stage fright. I, at that point,
Really?
just blanked out. I got, everything that everybody had talked about that I didn't understand,
Yeah.
because I'd
Yeah.
been performing for such a long time and at such a
Right.
young age when there was no fear, that I didn't understand this. What do you mean dry mouth? How can you have a dry mouth and still have spit coming out? Like,
Right.
how can you be sweating buckets and be freezing cold? I don't understand these things you're talking about. And then all
Yeah.
of a sudden it happened. And I was like, oh, and I
Yeah.
blanked, and this man, like, he had these piercing blue eyes, and he just looked at me, and all I could feel was disappointment. And I don't know that
Mm.
that's really what he felt, but it's
Mhm.
what I thought.
Yeah.
And it was a stark reminder that, you know ego is, you can be the greatest in the world, but you get to be the greatest in the world by putting in the effort. And if you don't put in the effort, you will never be great. And it was a hard reminder, very fast to learn.
Mm. Amazing, man. At 14 years old, that's you were quite mature, I have to say, to have that level of introspective. You
Well,
know,
I don't know that I was that introspective at 14. I know
at the
that that's
time.
the lesson that I know
Oh,
now
so
as
you
time goes
reflected.
on.
Okay, yeah.
But at 14, I definitely went, why is this a thing? And
Hmm.
knew that I needed to work harder. But it's only with age and maturity that I can look back on it, like most lessons in life,
That's right.
where I can see the grace within the lesson and the happening and why it needed to happen.
Well, yeah, that's for sure, right? I mean, usually when we're in the midst of it, just as you were at 14, with the veteran, um, we can't see the forest for the trees, right? I mean, we are just immersed into the minutia of whatever anxiety or hangups that we have, or even our own ego when we think everything is going great and we think we have it all figured out, right? Yeah, it's true, and so it's usually when you have that time, that separation after the fact, where you anyone who has a growth mindset, wants to reflect and try to ask themselves, okay, what is the lesson behind this? Why did this happen to me? Right? At this
Mhm.
one point, I thought I was immune to these sorts of things, and I'm not. It's like, oh, Tyler's human again. you know
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and it is there, and I've had a lot of those in my life.
Hmm.
When I got to when on New Year's Day, 1997, I was,
Hmm.
midway through my 17th year on this planet, and I woke up and had a medical incident occur, and I
Oh.
don't know if we still don't know to this day if it was a mini stroke, full stroke, palsy of some sort. But I
Right.
woke up New Year's Day, 1997, and the left side of my body was paralyzed,
Oh my gosh.
and that's put a lot of stuff into focus as well, because at that
Hmm.
point I got to again re-examine where I was, and where my ego was, and
Hmm.
what was a priority in my
Yeah,
life.
yeah.
When, especially at that age, I'd been performing at that point for 11 years,
Hmm.
and my whole career was like, my whole life was mapped out. I was going to be a professional actor. I was going to go to New York or LA. I was going to be on Broadway or in Hollywood.
Right,
I was
right.
right, like, and I was at a fine arts high school, and
Hmm.
I'm going to be somebody. And
Yeah.
and then it all got taken away. I literally woke up one day and it was gone.
Mm.
Because how are you an actor? At least in my mindset at the time, how could you possibly be an actor if half of your
Mhm.
body doesn't work?
Right.
How can I do anything if I can't sing or dance or
Yeah,
speak?
yeah, yeah.
And it was a real eye opener, literally an eye opener, because I couldn't shut my left eye, um,
Wow.
and I had to sleep with an eye patch for almost 2 months because of that
Seriously.
incident. Yeah, I couldn't. It was so bizarre.
Wow.
I literally couldn't make the left side of my body function. So we had to keep it shut, like, with an eye patch, and every night that's how I would go to bed. But it rapidly put what was important to me into focus. First of all,
Yes.
family and friends, because they
Yes.
rallied behind me,
Mhm.
and I knew what was important there. I knew that
Mhm.
the other thing is too, I had become really complacent in the craft.
Gotcha.
I
Gotcha.
didn't really care if I was acting at that
Right.
point. So if I really didn't care at that point, I would have just let it go. But as soon as somebody told me I will never act again, the one thing that I wanted more than anything else on the planet was to get back up on stage. I needed to be in front of a crowd, and there
Mhm.
was nothing that was going to stop me from doing it. And I put in so much effort
Mm.
into rehab and physio,
Yeah.
trying to get my body to do the things that my brain was telling it to do. And
Mhm.
it
Mhm.
just didn't want to. And luckily for me, I was able to overcome whatever it was. Still a medical mystery. I've got really great scans in my brain from it, though. I've
Oh,
got really
dude.
cool pictures.
I love brain scans. So you mentioned complacency, right? And so and if you said this part and I didn't get it, I apologize. But what was the source of your complacency at the time? Was it just indifference, didn't care if you acted or not acted, or and you just had to hear those words, "You will never act again," that really turned things around for you, or was it uh, the mindset that you had what it takes, it'll never go away from you, and you are enough. You don't need to do more because you're already accomplished. Which level of complacency were we talking about here?
Oh, we're talking the latter.
The latter.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay.
Definitely,
So
definitely.
you had what it took.
I had what it took, right? I was the big dog,
Yeah.
right? I,
Yeah.
leaded the show 3 years in a row. Who does that? Who can even walk
Yeah.
in?
Yeah.
And I I think I'd gotten to the point too where I thought that I couldn't learn anymore. Like I knew everything. I was 17, so obviously I knew everything there
Yeah, you're
was.
17. Come on.
You're 17. I don't know a 17-year-old alive that isn't the smartest person on the planet.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was just you know, it's ironic when you think you know everything, you have no idea just how naive you actually are. And when I can go back and
Oh
reflect,
yeah.
I mean, what I don't know currently could fill the Library of Congress.
Hmm. Hmm.
And yet I'm sure I thought I knew every tome in that library when I was 17. And I think I needed the humbling again. I think I
Yes.
needed to be reminded that there is more. There's a reason to try.
Hmm.
Um, and I got some incredible gifts from that too.
Yes.
I've got such blessings from it because not only was it humbling, but it forced me to have to go a different path. So I'd always been the star. I was always the lead of the whatever.
Yes.
Even when I was 6, I wasn't obviously headlining the shows that I was in, but
Yeah.
I was the kid, right? So
Yeah.
there's not a lot of child actors, and when you just know that if you're going to go to audition, particularly when you're in a small little pool like I was playing, like I was
Right.
just in a very small regional area,
Yeah.
you just knew that you were going to get it.
Yeah.
And when I just now all of a sudden couldn't get it, I had to look at, well, how can I still be, because I still wanted to be involved in the show.
Right. Right.
My senior year, I still wanted to be part of the production. The
Yeah.
worst part was seeing my best friend step in and take over the role that I was cast in
Hmm.
and then do a better job than me.
Oh
Oh,
gosh. Yeah.
like,
Insult to
ooh,
injury.
just that hurt. And then to not be able to really do anything about it.
Yeah.
But I was able to then go into the technical side. So for forever, I was in the performance side of theater.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
now I couldn't. I was still rehabbing. I was starting to get function back in the left side of my body, so I could use my hands, I could use my
Good.
leg, I could start to use my face. It
Good.
still wasn't perfect. I still wouldn't have been able to do the show,
Right.
but I was able to do the technical side. So I was able to help with the lighting setup and the
Yes.
AV and do set deck and props and
Great.
learn the other side.
Hmm. Hmm.
And again, at that point, I'd been in professional theater and film and TV for 11 years. And I never even thought about all of the other stuff that went in before I show up and got to do the razzle dazzle. And
Really?
all of a sudden I was exposed to all of the work. Like you see the people, You
Yeah,
see
yeah.
the grips, you
Yep.
see you
The
see
gaffers and
all
all
of the
that. Yeah.
people,
Yeah.
but I didn't even think about what they had to do until I was forced to do it, because that was the only way that I was going to be
Really?
included. And now all
Yeah.
of a sudden I have this appreciation for just the amount
Yes.
of effort that went into that production,
Yes.
and it made me a better performer. It made me a
Hmm.
better human, because
Hmm.
it's funny, right? Never judge a person until you walk a mile in their shoes,
That's exactly right. That's what they say.
right?
Yeah.
You got If
Yeah.
I can't
Yeah.
see from your point of view, I'm never going to
Yeah.
understand it. And to be able to step in and go, oh, wow, there's this whole other universe that I wasn't even
Yes.
aware of, and they were
Yes.
only 2 feet off stage.
Yes. Just that close. And for years, you didn't even see it, you know,
Yeah.
until you walk in their shoes. I tell you, man, empathy and perspective is everything, right? You combine those two, where not only are you like looking from a different perspective, from someone else's perspective, but you have the empathy to understand and feel what they're feeling, what they're going through based off their perspective. That is huge and beautiful, Tyler. I really appreciate you sharing that with me, because it's almost like you read my mind. I was going to ask you, what role did humility play in your life as a reflective question? And you nailed it to the T. It was spot on. I really appreciate that. And it was very colorful, very vivid. And I know the listeners can draw a vision in their mind's eye of what you were going through at that time. You know, uh, I'm nowhere near the level of expertise or background when it comes to acting and so forth as yourself, but I live in North Texas, and before moving down here 6 years ago, I lived in Cincinnati for most of my years growing up, Cincinnati, Ohio. And while I was there for about a good, I guess maybe 17, 18 years. I was a talent, excuse me, and I've done voiceover. In fact, I still do voiceover for several clients, just out of my home, since I moved. But I've done a lot of on camera and print work and things like that, and I've gone to a lot of auditions, and I get exactly what you're saying, man. I mean, there was a time when, even the directors for certain gigs, they'd have me say or do something, and then obviously you say or do something, do it again to put one in the can, as they say, and they were like, okay, you're a one hit wonder. It's like, whoa, one take wonder. That's it. Not one hit, one take wonder. And I'm like, wow, okay, I'm cool. I'm cool. I'm cool. And then I get a gig that has a little more elaborate language and dialogue, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to nail this, and I didn't prepare as well as I should have or have in the past. And then boom, you get that wake up call, right? And I have to say, I've had appreciation, I guess, maybe my fifth year going in for, like you mentioned, for the grips and those working the lighting, right? I mean, all that, all those details, man. And it's a true purpose. It's a true need for it, right?
Thankless jobs throughout. And for
Yes.
not a lot, like, that's the thing. People think that the working in the movies is this big glamorous thing, and
Right.
maybe it is for 0.1% of the people who get involved, but for the
Uh-huh.
other 99.9, it is thankless, tiring, and backbreaking work for not a lot of money.
Yeah, no, I tell you, yeah, it is thankless, and it makes such a big difference in the final, the final print, they say. So, yeah, that's man, that's major. So, when it came to just the natural ability to speak, to be articulate, to be clear, all of those things, it's not like I mean, and you may have went to like a professional voice coach or anything just for refinements, but naturally this was just who you were, who you are, right?
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know obviously what I sounded like at 6 years old. I
Mhm.
grew up obviously in an era prior to our parents having cell phones that could film everything. One of
Yeah.
the joys that I have right now with my daughter, who's five
Mhm.
years old, is that I can reflect back. Facebook reminds me this happened
Yes.
3 years ago, and I can go
Yes.
back and go, oh, listen to how she talked. And even further, I'm encouraging my daughter to follow in my footsteps. So she
Oh,
actually does
great.
more film and TV than I do currently. She
Really?
she auditions way more than I do, and so I get to see her growth just through that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I don't know what I sounded like, but I definitely know that I had to have been an articulate child, and I'm lucky too. So when I was young, one of the reasons I got into theater, my father passed away when I was 6 years old,
Mm.
and my mother put me into theater as kind of an outlet for an emotional outlet for me. I didn't
Sure.
outwardly grieve my father's passing for almost 6 years. And
Oh,
I think
wow.
she was concerned about that. And this was one way that she knew that I could at least have a safe space to express myself if I needed to.
I understand.
And but with my father's passing, and they say it takes a village to raise a child. And my mom
Yes.
had me and my sister to take care of, and she definitely had a community rally around her. One of that community was my aunt and uncle,
Mm-hmm.
and my uncle is amateur thespian himself. Like he quite enjoys performance, but a trained psychologist. And my aunt and him are both social workers
Mm-hmm.
and have an incredible gift at communicating, particularly to young children.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they would speak to me and my sister as adults, and we were encouraged to talk and express our feelings and our emotions, I think had a large impact on who I was and how I grew up, because you weren't taught to, like, you weren't looked at or viewed as a child. You were
Right.
just a small human,
Mm.
and you had thoughts and emotions and feelings
Yes.
that mattered, and you were encouraged to discuss them and openly. And dinner tables at my Aunt Terry's and Uncle Brad's were fantastic places for
Mm-hmm.
conversation and discourse. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
then I being in theater too, I was exposed to different language, different words. I naturally had a larger vocabulary. My wife bugs me relentlessly because growing up hooked on phonics, I have
Uh-huh.
a massive vocabulary that I can't spell correctly
Oh, wow.
because I'm an auditory learner. So
Right.
I
Right.
hear these words, but I don't read them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even when I first started acting, because I
Mm-hmm.
was acting right when you just start to learn to read in grade one.
Yeah.
My one of my first teachers would record my lines for me on one of those, those old tape recorders with like the
Yeah.
red button. They were like beige and big
Yes.
red button
Yes.
for record.
Sure do.
She
Yep.
used to record my lines for
Mm-hmm.
me that way, and then I would listen to them back and rehearse them. And because of that, I've always done that. Like to this day, I've switched from the big, obviously, tape recorder to now the app on my
Of
cell
course.
phone.
Right.
But that's how I learn my lines,
Mm-hmm.
is I record them and then just listen to them over and over and over again. Um, and so I again, large vocabulary, because I get to be exposed to all this wonderful language.
Right.
I have no
Right.
idea how to spell it.
So I'm assuming the interaction and the dialogue at the dinner table with your aunt and uncle, treating you as just small humans, happening first. That had to be an asset for in theater when you're with a production crew. I mean, those are all adults, and as a child you have to have patience. You also have to be able to listen to and follow direction, right?
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, I mean, when there's set changes, right, then you have to have patience and sit. As a child, who wants to sit for about I don't know, 45 minutes while they do a set change and then tell you to come on? And then when there's different changes in body positioning and inflection of voice, you have to be able to listen to that direction, take the direction, and turn it around to what they were asking. And I think with your aunt and uncle talking with you and your sister that way, that had to be a huge asset in the theater world for you.
Well, it was, and mind you, so the theater world was a blessing in 1,000 different ways. So
Mm,
first of all, having an aunt and uncle who were very
yeah.
supportive of me and my cousin and my sister to a small degree. She didn't really get into the arts quite as much as we did.
Hmm.
Um, but like my cousin to this day, he ended up marrying an actress. He's, you know, uh, still in theater himself in a very regionally well-known band,
Right.
but he plays his music all the time. So
Right.
again, the arts were encouraged. But another bonus to being in theater at a young age is that under the union rules, when you're an equity actor,
Yeah.
and underage, they have to school you, because
Mm.
you're out, right? You're taking time off of
Ah,
school a lot.
yes, you
So
are.
I would get private instruction, one-on-one, or, 3-on-1 tutoring,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there's never usually a lot of kids in a production,
Right.
and so you'd get private tutoring, and I was also a voracious reader. So I
Hmm.
would have homework to do, and if I didn't have homework, I would just be reading, or I'd be prepping lines for an audition.
Hmm.
So I being a working professional at a young age, that gave me a work ethic. As you said, I think the adults appreciated the fact that I was focused, but a lot of that came from just necessity,
Right.
because while they get to chit chat backstage, or do Sudoku on while they're
Right.
waiting for the scene to come up, right? If we're running
Yeah.
DLPs and stuff like that, and you're just kind of waiting,
Yeah.
um, they can do, I remember one of the gentlemen that I used to act with a lot would do Rubik's cubes all day long. He would do, this was this is before people were speed
Right.
cubing, right?
Yeah.
This is
Yeah.
back in the late 80s, it still took an hour to do a Rubik's cube. And a lot of them would play chess or Risk.
Hmm.
I was a huge fan of Risk growing up, just because I watched everybody play Risk while
Oh
we were
my
while we were backstage or
gosh.
waiting. It's a great way to kill time, but I didn't have the luxury of doing that,
Hmm.
because I had math that was due, or
Ah, as a
social
child.
studies,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
science. So
Instruction.
I'm having to do the work, and then work
Hmm.
one-on-one with the tutor, and then
Hmm.
still submit that work to school. And like I had this bizarre, outer different lifestyle than most of my peers, and I
Amazing.
think that helped too, being around adults who talk to you like an adult, having
Right.
family who treated me like an adult,
Right.
and then just having to emulate adulthood at an
Hmm.
early age was a blessing and a curse. I mean,
Yeah.
when you grow up that fast, I don't know that my childhood was ever robbed, but I don't remember what childhood was like.
Gotcha. I understand. I understand. Um, at what point in your life, in your journey, did you did you reach a milestone where you thought to yourself, "Okay, I think I have something of value that I can impart to people who are looking to overcome fear of speaking or maybe improve their existing speaking skills." When did you reach that realization that this is something that you can serve and offer to the public?
Honestly, I've been working toward I feel like I've been working towards this all my life. Even when
Hmm.
I was in high school, I was a TA,
Hmm.
and helping with the in the drama class. But I didn't really have that aha moment until probably 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
And it came about very organically, very naturally. I've had multiple career transitions. So I technically retired from acting when I was 25, because,
Mm.
hey, I'd been doing it 20 years, right? You only work
Right.
20 years.
There you
You
go.
only
You
work
can
20
retire.
years and then you retire. I worked hard. I deserved a break.
Yeah.
And I actually ended up taking my movie money and
Hmm.
going to school and getting an engineering discipline, and studied surveying and map making, geomatics
Yeah.
officially.
Hmm.
I started a business. That business collapsed. Pivoted, and starting the business, I had to get a whole bunch of safety training. Ended up becoming a safety consultant,
Right. Right.
and I have this flair.
Hmm.
And what I found was that I naturally gravitated towards teaching. My father was a teacher before he passed away. Again, my uncle and my aunt, although technically caregivers in that they're social
Hmm.
workers, their real natural gift is that they are teachers and educators, and in a different light and format. And I don't know, it was a thing that started, and where I had the aha moment was I started um, instructing as a contract instructor for one of the safety associations where I
Okay.
live,
Hmm.
and I would get incredible feedback of it. And one of the courses that they ended up having me instruct was called Basic Instructional Technique. And it was a misleading course because you thought you were going to learn how to give basically train for safety training.
Right.
And really what it was public speaking one-on-one.
Oh,
And
wow.
most people hated doing this, but this course was a necessity for them to get a designation. So
Gotcha.
there was 11 courses that they needed to become National Construction Safety Officers, NCSOs, and this BIT course was one of them. And I loved doing it because I loved hearing people talk and getting them to come out of their shell and talk about it. And everyone else's classes they would avoid, but mine would get full. And when it started to circulate, and I'd be like, well, why is this class half empty? Why am I getting called back? And they're like,
right,
you make it easy. You make it easy to do it. Like people always come in afraid, but they leave empowered. And what do you do that's different? I'm like, I don't know. I'm following your guys' syllabus.
Yeah.
But the syllabus was very loose in that I got to have, unlike some of the other safety training that I did, which was very prescriptive because it had to be legislatively compliant. Basic instructional technique was, there wasn't even an exam at the end. The exam was, can you get up and give a presentation for 8 to 12 minutes and not go over? And then we'd let them do whatever they wanted. Whatever they wanted, they could present. I remember one guy presented on the proper way to pick up dog feces from the park.
Really?
Complete with props, made with eat more candy bars. Eat more candy bars. He molded them into the appropriate shape, and then gave everybody little baggies. And the instruction, the 8-minute talk was on how to properly go and why you should clean up after your pet in the in the dog park. And I'll never forget that. But presentations can be on anything. And when I realized that all of these people had a benefit, because what would happen is, now I know that if I've told somebody how to give a better, more engaging presentation, that means when they go out to the workforce, particularly when I was doing this as a safety focus,
right,
these people are going out and making their workplaces safer.
Yes.
That means that those people have a better potential of making it home to their spouse and family at the end of the day, which is a luxury that my mother and myself were taken from when my father passed away, coming home from work, falling asleep at the wheel because he was working 18-hour days, 11 days in a row, and was fatigued on the 12th.
Yeah.
And when I realized that I would have that kind of impact, that I had the potential to make a difference so that another child didn't have to lose their father or their mother. Well, when I put those two and two together, I had a mission and I wasn't stopping. And that's where the book came in. That's where the training courses came in. Nice. And when I really grabbed hold of it, that's when I've found the most vibrancy in my life. That's when I've been the most soulfully fulfilled. That's where I've been the most financially fulfilled. This has just become a calling. And I know it's a calling because it's at a high level. I'm evangelical when it comes to public speaking. I'm like, everybody can do it. You're not really afraid of it. Let's go out. Let's get your message out there.
You know, man, I got to tell you, and I'm sure you've been told this many times, but even with a syllabus as an instructor, there's straight content that you have to teach, but to me, delivery is everything. I mean, if you can take the most dull, mundane topic or content, and you have a delivery of energy, a delivery that manifests inspiration, these are things that really attract and appeal to the audience, and I have to say, man, your experience in theater and in acting, it only complements and sharpens the blade of your current skills when it came to giving instruction in that role. So I can see this being more, to me, more than a calling. All due respect, it's an anointing, I think.
Oh, and I thank you for using the word, because I see the grace and the divinity in everything that has happened to my life. It all needed to happen in the sequence, in the order in which it did, for me to arrive at this point 42 years later, where I can say, look at what I can do. And not only that, but know that this is what I need to do. Like, it's not even this is kind of fun. If I don't do this, I don't know what I would do. I need to do this.
Yeah, and it's not just self-fulfilling, right? And life's too short for us to be stuck in a role or a job doing something that we don't enjoy. We work hard, and so we want to. I mean, life's too short to be in a role like that. So you want to do something that you enjoy, and not only do you enjoy it, as I can tell, Tyler, you impact lives for the better, and that speaks volumes. And doing it, uh, doing it in your heart of hearts for just giving young ones an opportunity that you didn't have with the loss of your father. And I'm sorry to hear that. um, that tells me the deep rooted passion that you have, and that it's simply a purpose. It's not just something that, yeah, I'll casually do it when I get time. No, you are ingrained in this and entrenched in this. And I have to commend you for your drive and passion behind all this, man.
Well, thank you. And it truly is, because I feel that, we had touched on it earlier, right? There's
Hmm.
a power in story, and
Yeah.
walking that mile in somebody else's shoes. I can't physically get in to your shoes.
Right.
We are separated by time and distance. And even if I could be sitting right beside you, Aubrey, I wear a size 8.
Yeah.
I ain't getting in your kicks. You know what I'm saying? So I I can't actually walk in your steps.
Hmm.
But if you tell me your story,
Hmm.
and if you can tell it in a compelling way, now
Hmm.
I can see the world through your eyes.
Hmm.
And that's when we have real impact and real power. That's why I loved doing that one course, because I got to see what people's passions were, because that's what they talked about,
Yes.
right? When
Yes.
you say you can talk about anything, you got to see where people were passionate. I mean, from quit letting your dog poop in the wrong place
Right.
to I had a gentleman who used to be a park ranger in Newfoundland and sang about the beauty of the national parks and how much he missed
Wow.
being there. I
Yeah.
remember one lady doing a presentation on the power of essential oils and
Hmm.
how oil of oregano was like the cure all and be all. And she made everybody try this little droplet of oil of oregano, and it like burned my eyes. That's why I remember that one. But like, I got to see people's passions come out. I remember one guy, no word of a lie. This is a grown professional in construction whose passion was kites. And he made these kits overnight for everybody to assemble these tiny little 14-inch kites. And then we all went out and flew them
No
outside of the
way.
training facility. Like,
Yeah.
I got to see people's passions. And
Wow.
when you can express your passion, and then people were appreciated for it too. And that's what they don't understand. It's one of the
Right.
things that's one of the main tenets of my book, is usually people are so afraid to say this is a thing that I love, or this is a thing that I think,
Yeah.
or this is how I feel.
Yeah.
We get so bottled up inside. And one of the reasons the book is called The Power to Speak Naked is because I
Yes.
want you to expose that naked raw truth. I
Hmm.
want you to let it out into the world, because when we can share those experiences, we find the other people who like those experiences.
That's right.
And the beautiful thing about that kite one was you had, again, a room of 20 people, 20 adults, all in construction, most of them male, big, burly construction men.
Right. Yeah.
And the joy on their faces sitting out on an August afternoon, flying 20 kites beside a farmer's field,
Wow.
was one of the greatest things I've ever seen in my life. To see those people, like we were all experiencing pure joy at just
Wow.
doing a kite, something
Yeah.
that simple. And
Yeah.
the person was so afraid to do it. And then they were like, well, this is what I know. This is what I do.
Yeah.
And we were all like, kites.
Yeah. You know what, man? Tyler, dude, you got what I don't like this term, but I can't think of a better term. You got the secret sauce. Okay. And that secret sauce is, your mission is to get people to come out of their shell, to get people, out of their nervous zone, and be okay with being uncomfortable, right?
Yes.
But you have a strategy in how you do that. And when you tap into their passions, uh, you know, a whole universe opens up for them in terms of possibilities, because they're expressing in a very passionate way something that means something to them, whether it's a hobby or a place or, or a sport, So that is totally the secret sauce. And you know what? I mean, my dad passed away back in '06. He had a pulmonary fibrosis, breathing type of respiratory disease. But for many years, he was in the military, and both my parents were in the military. And he told me when I was like just out of high school, I think, he said, the 10 years that I served, he was in the Army for 20, but for 10, he served as a recruiter. And so he said, it was easy getting young men out of high school into the Army. It was easy. I'm like, Dad, how was it easy? And he said, the first time they walked into my office, I get them to talk about themselves. I ask them questions about themselves. Tell me about yourself. What interests do you have? Where are you from? What do you do? What do you like? Right. And then from there, people just open up naturally. It's inherent in all of us, and we're not trying to be boastful or arrogant or anything like that. But, it's someone on the other side of the table who's asking this of us. And if we can tell in their eyes that they have a true, instilled, genuine, authentic interest in us, then we'll open up and share that with them. And that's what you have, my friend.
Well, thank you. The other thing of the secret sauce is a little bit of Thousand Island, but everything else that you said as well.
Okay.
No,
hey, I can do.
Yeah, I do. I have a passion because I've seen the impact that it can have. I see when, people open up and then the communication starts. And even on a deeper social level, I've seen the power of people saying some things that deeply weigh on their heart.
Yeah.
And the lightness that comes when you can let that go, when you let the fear of judgment go.
Yes.
One of the most powerful talks that I ever witnessed, and I was blessed to have helped coach this talk. A good friend of mine, Jenna, came and during an event that we were putting together. They were a series of TEDx style 10 to 11-minute presentations before the keynote presenter was coming on that evening discussing relationships. And this talk, she came out and talked about the moment her life changed. And she walked us through a 30 to 45-second story about being home one evening, and her husband had just got home. And you know how when you just set your cell phone down and it pings, just for a moment, the text flashes across the screen. And he had set his cell phone down, and a little text had pung in, and she just happened to be there looking at it. And the text across the screen said, "I miss you already. I can't wait to see you again."
Wow.
And in that moment, her life changed. Because she had kind of had a feeling something might have been happening with her husband, but at that point, his infidelity had been confirmed.
Oh.
Now, what made this talk so powerful was then she flipped the script. She talked about how it pulled the rug out from under her, how she didn't know what to do. She felt so betrayed, but she also had to analyze, what does this mean for our relationship? Do I still want to be in this relationship? The answer was yes. And then she started looking at, well, what leads to infidelity? And she talked most of the talk about how it was a series of bad decisions, right? They're an erosion of barriers and boundaries to a point where you end up in a place where you never thought you would be. And it starts really subtle, really slow. Like, we're colleagues. It's not flirting. I'm being friendly. What's wrong with going for lunch? We work together.
Yeah.
We need to do this business. What's wrong with an after work dinner? And these series of poor decisions lead to the ultimate bad decision, because it becomes so subtle over time that you don't even notice where you're at. And then she talked about how she had to take her responsibility in it. Not that it was her fault.
Right.
And she wanted to be really clear, because at this point in the talk, you got to understand, the room was 80% female because they're there to see the headliner who talks about love and relationships. And there was a lot of estrogen in that room.
Oh,
and
yeah.
that room got really hostile really quick. And she said,
Oh, I
I had
bet.
to take my responsibility in it. And she
Mhm.
said, but you don't understand that this is, this is important, because if you don't take responsibility, we all lead to this path. Like I was doing things that was alienating my husband.
Yes.
It doesn't justify his behavior. He shouldn't have done
No.
it. He should have
No.
just known better.
That's right.
But I had done the stuff. So she's explaining this talk. And then she talks about how they decided to work on it.
Mhm.
That, she needed to work on forgiveness, and she wasn't quite there yet,
Right.
but that she wanted
Right.
wanted to find the peace and the harmony, because she loved her husband and she wanted to maintain that relationship. He loved her and felt racked with guilt for what he had done
Right.
in the betrayal.
Right.
And they couldn't change what had happened, but what they
No.
could do is work forward. And she starts explaining all this. And then this is where the talk became the greatest talk I've ever seen. She said, I bet you guys are wondering right now how my husband feels about me standing up on stage telling you our dirtiest, darkest secret.
Mm.
And if you're curious about it, you can ask him. He's sitting right there.
Oh,
and
you're
she
kidding.
pointed to her husband 2 rows back.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, you
Serious?
could hear, absolutely, you could hear crickets, pin drops
Oh my
in that auditorium.
gosh.
And then all of a sudden she said, and I think he deserves a round of applause for being brave enough to be here to support me while I give this talk. And she started to clap. Everybody
Beautiful.
clapped. I was
Beautiful.
bawling. I was just
Yeah.
like, it was awe-inspiring. But here's the thing. At least 10 couples came to talk to her afterwards saying,
Mhm.
we're going through the same thing. We
Mhm.
didn't want to talk about it.
Right.
How do we do what you did?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
by her sharing that one story, she's now saved at least 10 relationships, if not more, or given them a guiding path to say this doesn't need to be the end.
Yes.
And
yes.
I've seen examples of that from people talking about their struggle with mental health and how they overcame suicidal thoughts. I've
That's
seen
right.
people talk about it. It's one of the reasons why AA works, because you have people coming out saying, look, I am an alcoholic.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then you have a group of people who support because they understand the struggle. They're not judging you there. They're there to support you.
Right.
And that's when we find our support. That's when we can walk the mile in our shoes, because you can, like, again, that room got hostile with her when she said she had to take responsibility for her part of it. But then she explained why it was important to
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. Oh,
And then
yeah.
she got the crowd on board. But she couldn't have done that if she didn't expose her soul. And in being vulnerable like that, I promise you, nobody in that room left there thinking, oh, she shouldn't have said that. I wouldn't have said that.
No.
Everybody came to thank her for being open and vulnerable. And that's what I would encourage every one of your listeners to do, especially talking about the road to rediscovery. You want to know who you are. You want to discover who you are, or rediscover who you are. You got to get real and honest with yourself. One of the things that I talk about in all of my training sessions is that if you want to talk authentic and authenticity is synonymous with self-awareness. You
100%.
cannot
100%.
present yourself authentically if you don't know who you are.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Man, that is huge. I really, really appreciate that story. It makes me wish I was sitting there in the room listening to her talk. And that's what it's all about, right? People who have the power to make themselves vulnerable. We all have the power, by the way, but to make themselves vulnerable in the spirit of helping others, right? In the spirit of uplifting others, putting yourselves out there, right? I love that perspective. I love how she flipped the script. I love how she spoke and referenced self-awareness as well as accountability. On the road to rediscovery, we have what we call the 4 cornerstones to growth. And it all starts with self-awareness as the first one. And then there's humility, gratitude, and service to others. So self-awareness is huge. You're right. And it is synonymous with authenticity. You have to be authentic.
Well, and I find it's such an overused word right now. Like I see all these speakers,
Yeah,
oh, I'm
yeah.
authentic, and they think they're authentic because they curse like a trucker. And I'm like, you're giving truckers a bad name, my friends. You're
Yeah,
not even
yeah.
giving sailors a good name. Like you're just
Right.
doing it because of the shock value. Well, that's
Yeah.
authentically me. I'm like, no,
No, no,
as a
no.
human being, we have an innate BS meter, and I call BS, my friend. I call BS.
Oh,
Um,
totally.
but when you're somebody like yourself, Aubrey, where you come, you speak with a passion, you have a reason and a message. There's no BS with you. Like there's no meter going off. Your listeners know this. They come back week after week because what you're presenting is authentic. Which, by the way, to those listeners right now who are listening to this, if you like what Aubrey is doing, I want you to hit pause on this recording right now. The rest of he's going to ask me a few questions to close this up, but before we do, the format. Before he gets to that, I want you to hit pause on this recording because there is a lot of effort that goes into what Aubrey does day in, day out. This is a labor of love, folks. And I
Yeah.
want you to reward him with that, with at least a 5-star review. So hit pause right now. You hit pause right now. You go and give him a 5-star review because I got to tell you, this is one of the best interviews that I have done. So I'm giving him a 5-star review. If I can do it, you can do it too. So take a moment, give the 5-star review,
Oh
and then come
man.
back and find out how I feel about the world.
Oh, Tyler, man, you are much too kind, man. I really appreciate that. I really do, man. Thank you so much. And yes, it is a labor of love. It's a passion, and it's something that I feel is very important to project to the world. Now, I'm not so above myself to where it's me or no one. I'm just a small, like, I don't know, a small Indian, a small foot soldier, if you will, in the army of self development and improvement. Okay, it's a huge community out there, and I just want to do my part, as little as it is, to add value, and connecting with wonderful people such as yourself, who goes out and impacts the lives of others for the better, and that has the passion and spirit that you do, and it is genuinely picked up by those who receive it. That's energy, my friend. That is energy. And I know in my day job profession that I do in talent development, that energy, it means a lot, right? Not many people remember what you say, but they definitely remember how you made them feel, you know and I know I'm preaching to the choir. You already know this, but I just want to let you know, my friend, that you and I, we're in lockstep, Tyler.
Well, and that just shows that we are meant to have had this conversation. Again, nothing happens by circumstance. Everything happens for us, not to us. So I'm glad that you and I were able to connect and have this chat.
Oh, absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. I'm equally glad and grateful. So, Tyler, how can the listeners connect with you, learn more about you, and pick up a copy of your book?
So the best thing that they can do is just go to SeanTylerFoley.com. And Sean is spelled
Okay.
the proper Irish way,
Yep.
SeanTylerFoley. And if you're confused and going, wait, but your name's Tyler, it's Sean Tyler Foley. Sean is just the stage name. It's my full legal name at that point. So
uh,
um, all my friends call me Tyler. That's why Aubrey and I are Tyler and Aubrey today. But SeanTylerFoley.com. And anyone who goes there can download a free copy of The Method, which is an 11-page document that gives you 5 insider secrets to
mhm.
the uh, 35 years of experience that I've put together. I've put it together in a nice little booklet for them. And then there they can find all the information on the book. If anybody does want to pick up a copy of the book, it's on pre-sale right now. It'll be coming out in bookstores across the world September 7th. But I would encourage anybody who is interested in the book to go and grab a pre-sale of the copy at your local bookstore. You could go and get it online. You could go to Barnes and Noble, or you could support Jeff Bezos, but I think they got enough money. Go to your local bookstore, physically talk to a person and ask them if you can pre-order a copy of The Power to Speak Naked. And I would appreciate it greatly. Not because I need the pre-sales, but because I really want to support the small local mom and pop shops who have supported me throughout my career. I love going and getting used books, and I will continue to do that. So if they could go to their local bookstore and pre-order a copy, I would be grateful for that.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I really appreciate that and sharing that, Tyler, for sure. So for the listeners, once again, I'm just going to concur and reiterate what Tyler mentioned. Uh, Pre-order a book, right? And it will be released in September, right, Tyler?
That's correct, September.
Okay, and go to a brick and mortar local bookstore and pick up a copy at that time. Let's support our local merchants, our local business owners, and in doing that, right? We have the convenience of online. We've practiced it enough. I think we can get in the car and physically interact with a human being at a brick and mortar store to pick up a copy.
Well, and just in case there's the few stubborn people who are like, no, I am not leaving the safety and comfort of my home. Go to bookshop.org.
Ah,
Bookshop.org will connect you with your local retailer. It still allows you the convenience of ordering online, but without all of the hassle of actually having to go to the store or to support some of the larger conglomerates. And as I understand it from my publisher, if you do go to bookshop.org, you may actually be able to get a copy of the book for less than retail for some reason right now.
oh,
I
wow.
think it's showing at $15 and change, and regularly at $17.95. So by all means, go in if you can't go talk to a human being and you have to type it in, bookshop.org, and that's a great resource for any book, not just The Power to Speak Naked. If you want to find any books that are on your list, you want to go pick up a copy of The Four Agreements, or you want to pick up a copy of Unleash the Power Within, or anything that I'm sure Aubrey has talked about on his show, you go ahead and you go to bookshop.org, and it will find you your most local retailer, and you can shop online that way.
Oh, that's huge. In fact, you know what? We're going to also put bookshop.org as a direct link in the episode show notes, in addition to your website, man. And Amazon, it's on there. But once again, go to your brick and mortar, pre-order, or bookshop.org. Tyler Foley, man, it's been a pleasure, man. I really, really enjoyed our conversation. I really, truly am grateful that you and I connected, man. And I really hope that we can stay in touch, and maybe, 6 or 8 months down the line, have you come back on the show and just share with the listeners, what new things are happening in your life, man.
Oh, it would be my absolute pleasure, Aubrey. You have me back anytime you want. This was a great conversation. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, thank you so much, man. Thank you. So now we're going to go into a segment I like to call Three for the Road. And in Three for the Road, that's where I ask my guests three random yet thought provoking questions, challenging them to answer in 5 words or less. So, Tyler, what do you think? You think you're up for it?
I've been prepping all day.
All right, here we go, man. And by the way, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but none of my questions are cookie cutter. No two guests get the same question. My questions are customized based on the expertise and background of the guest. So here we go. Starting us off. Question number one for Three for the Road. Name a scenario that most people relate to public speaking. And when I say scenario, I mean something like, and everybody says this, right? Nails on a chalkboard. Okay, fine. But a scenario like that most people relate to public speaking.
Speaking or picturing the crowd naked.
Okay, all right, okay. Yep. That's a good one. All right, now name a scenario that you relate to public speaking.
Most exhilarating experience ever.
Loving it. And you have one to spare, 1 word to spare after that. Awesome. Okay, fantastic. All right, so topping us off for Three for the Road, question number three, Tyler. I'm going to give you a scenario. You are currently on stage about to speak to 60,000 people in the audience. You have only 3 seconds to completely wow and captivate the audience. What do you say?
Your story matters.
I like it. I like it, man. 3 words, 2 to spare, and such a short phrase with such a huge meaning. Your story matters. Love it. Love it. Tyler, man, you knocked it out of the park. Thank you so much for coming on the show. It was great having you here, man. And I truly, once again, I'm getting fanboy out here now, but I truly enjoy your show. Your show. See, I'm getting fanboy. I'm getting nervous. I truly enjoy our conversation and you coming on to the show, man. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me as the honorary host of the Road to Rediscovery. Thank you for being on my show, Aubrey, and interviewing me so well.
Oh, no, you're welcome, man. And I want to thank all of you for coming on the show and coming on the show. I'm thanking you for coming on the show. No, I'm thanking you for tuning in and listening to the show. And please set the date as a general reminder. July 1st is the official launch date for the Rediscovery Roadmap online course. That's right. If you are on a quest for personal development, this course offers an introspective approach using the 4 cornerstones to personal growth. For more information, visit roadtorediscovery.com/course. That's road, the number 2, rediscovery.com/course. And also, if you have a loved one or know anyone who's going through just dark days of despair, they're struggling, they seem to be at the end of their rope, nowhere to turn, no direction to take, I humbly ask that you please share this show with them because we want everyone to understand 2 things. Number 1, you are not alone. You're never alone. And number 2, there's always hope. The Road to Rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now a part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon.
The Road to Rediscovery is an AJ Shark production.